Welcome to another week of learning Mishna Berurah. We are continuing learning the rules regarding the Shema, the Kriya Shema, and its brachos, the blessings before and after. And we have basically gone through the whole first pasuk. We went over Shema Yisrael. We went over what are the rules for it? What does it mean? How do you recite it? What do you have to think about that you shouldn't repeat it? And now we're going to talk about the next one, which is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. So this is not a pasuk. This is not a verse found anywhere in Torah. It's only mentioned in the Medrash. It's only mentioned by way of a long-standing oral tradition. And the halacha is brought down is generally saying the reason why it's recited is because our forefather, Jacob, Yaakov Avinu, recited it. So let's go through the halacha real quick. We're on 13. We did the first 12 last week. So after the first verse, you say this statement, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Okay, which is blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom, okay, or his honorable kingdom, forever and ever. And you recite it quietly or in some type of undertone. And if you don't say it, some people hold that you should go back and say it again. We won't get into that too much. Just say it. If you did miss it, just go back and say it again. Now, the reason why it's not really part of the Shema itself. But what happened was that when our forefather Jacob wanted to recite this for all of the children, and he wanted to tell them about the end of days, he lost his access to prophecy. Okay, and Hashem didn't want him to tell them what was going to happen, and so then they all recited Shema Yisrael. Okay, and he said Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Okay, so the response to that was, how can we recite it if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't recite it? And they say no, because it's an enactment that comes from our forefather Jacob. Okay, it's just known from oral tradition. So that's where this comes from. Okay, and we learn also that in the next halacha, number 14. That you should take a little break in between the words Le'olam Va'ed, forever and ever. And then you should have a little break between that and Ve'ahavta, because they need to show that these two statements are not in the rest of the mitzvah of accepting the yoke of heaven upon yourself, the responsibility of being Mekadesh Shem Shemayim, to accept upon yourself the greatness of heaven. Okay? So, because the other mitzvah over here is, the next mitzvah is V'ahavta, is to love Hashem. That's a separate mitzvah from the first one. Okay? Okay, we also take little breaks during Shema. So the Ramah brings down, you should take a little break between, when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu, Hashem, Echad. Okay? Right, so the way you should break that up is so that people would understand it the following way. Listen, Israel, for Hashem, He is the master of the universe. He is Hashem, the only one. Okay? And one should also take a little break after you finish saying the word Echad and Baruch Shem Kavod. Okay, because the main place to focus on accepting the kingdom of heaven upon yourself is in that first verse, not in the second one. Okay? So, and that's why you should take a little bit of a break according to the Shulchan Aruch. The next halacha, this is 15 over here. A person should take a break between Hayom al Levavecha. Okay, so if you want to take a look at the actual verses inside of the Shema, you can open up the Shema right now. Okay, and you can look at it in the Siddur. So in the first paragraph, it says to take a break, and you'll see actually in a lot of Siddurim, including the Art Scroll, a little straight line. Okay, Hayom al vavecha, and also between Hayom la'ahava. Okay, so that way you should focus on the word Hayom as being something that's being done immediately. Okay. Now the next break, 16 here. Okay. 16. You also have to take a break. Ben nishba la Hashem. Okay. You should make sure that you pronounce the word nishba, which means that Hashem has sworn. Okay. In order that the ayin should sound pronounced and shouldn't sound like a hey. Because if it sounds like a hey, it sounds like you've been taken captive. And actually, the truth is that the reason why this is said is because the ayin itself is actually an ong sound. Have you ever heard people refer to name people named Yaakov? They call him Yankel, Yankee, Yaakov. So the old way in the old Yiddish that people used to speak it, the ayin in the Hebrew was a guttural sound. For example, why is it called Sodom and Gomorrah when in Hebrew they are pronounced Sdom v'Amorah, right? Well, the ayin is actually a guttural sound, like a het. So it's actually an ayin. So the word's actually nishbang, like that. So some people actually used to spell it as A-N-G in English. Okay, and that's why it makes that sound. Okay, and so, that the idea is that that Hashem should be trapped somewhere. We don't want that to be that statement. That isn't brought in the Mishna Berurah, but that is brought in the Lavush and the Kaf Chaim. Other explanations say that that's what it's basically referring to. Okay, also in the last paragraph, Laman Tiz Keru. A person should make sure that they really zing, okay, right? The word they use here in Hebrew is lahatiz. It really means to chop it. Man tiz keru. So you shouldn't hear the man tiz keru, right? As if you're going to get reward for it. And then we would be like those who serve Hashem in order to get a reward. And you also have to make sure that the Zion of Uz Charpem, as called mitzvos Hashem, right? You want to make sure the Zion is very pronounced. So make sure your Z is zing when you are reciting these verses. Okay, you don't want to. I heard a great joke from somebody one time. There was this guy reciting the Shema, and he kept hearing him go, "Laman tiz keru, Laman tiz keru, Laman tiz keru." And he goes over and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Do you know how much reward I'm getting for pronouncing these Karu correctly?" So, I like that joke. Okay, so another important pronouncement. Okay, in the Shema itself, this is halacha 18 here. One should really accentuate the yud. Okay, the word used here is yadgish. So to be dagesh is just like you put a dot in it and really say it. Shema Yisrael. Okay, you shouldn't hear it say Shema Yisrael, right? Shema Yisrael. Okay, and it shouldn't sound like it's an aleph sound. Okay, and you should also make sure that any yud in there, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela, and it says that as well. It should be v'hayu or v'hayu l'totafot, right? You should really make sure that it's pronounced. Not let it be swallowed in the previous letter. Okay, that and the Mishnah Berurah says now he's picking out specific verses, but this is really important to the Mishnah Berurah as across the entire Shema. You need to make sure that the words aren't swallowed or switched out with other letters or don't sound correctly. Okay, like ve'ahavta needs pronounced, and not ve'ahavta, right? It's not a f sound; it's a v sound. Ve'ahavta. My livvavecha, right? So you think about like people when they're sloppy. So he's saying v'chol navshecha. He gives those examples even here. V'chol modecha, and not mi'odecha. Okay, so you're supposed to be very careful to say it slowly, every single letter by itself, and to recite the word clearly from his mouth, the way that halacha expects it to be pronounced. Okay, because that way you're also kind of straight. You're kind of aligning your whole body with the Shema. Okay, and this halacha continues into the next chapter as well. Okay. You need to put a little break between v'chara and af. It should be v'chara af Hashem bochem ve'atzar es Hashmayim. Right, so not v'charaf. So don't say v'charaf. V'charaf sounds like you're being blown off, set aside. Okay, and something. So we don't want it to be assumed that there's a cherpa, that you're somehow being unloaded in some way. Okay, that's not what it should sound like. Hashem just simply will be angry at your behavior. Number 20 over here. You should put some space in between the words that sound like they are the beginning, or whose beginning letter is the same as the end letter of the previous one. Okay. So b'chol levavecha, right? Al levavchem, b'chol levavchem, esev b'sarecha, va'avadetem meheira. Okay. Hakanaf pasil. All right, itchem me'eretz. So in those are all the cases in there. So make sure that you don't blend the consonants. You don't want it to say b'chol levavecha, al levavecha, right? Al levavecha. It's not al levavecha. It's al levavecha. B'chol levavecha. Right? Don't do that. Be very clear about it. So it's not that you have to actually take a full break, the Mishna explains, but you have to make sure that the letters are clear, that make sure that they are pronounced. Al levavecha. Okay, nonetheless, you still need a little bit of a break. Not a full pause, but a break. Okay? And there's a line in the Siddur called a makaf, which basically tells you that you need to make sure that it is recited correctly. Okay? And that's usually where you need to have the previous one has the O sound called a cholem, and then the makaf, and then the next one is usually a kamatz, b'chol levavecha. Okay. More in pronouncing words correctly. 21. With every single aleph that follows a mem, you need to put a little bit of a break between them, such as v'limadatem osam, ukshartem osam, v'samtem es, right? Or isem oiso, uzhartem es, v'asisem es, right? All these words that you should not hear, mosam, mace, right? You should make sure that the words have a little breathing room. Okay? So, and he says this isn't only in the Shema, but the Shlah actually says that anytime you have a mem and an aleph next to each other, you should make sure to do that. Okay? He says also, for specifically in the Shema, Va'avadem Elohim achivrim inechem asher atem zonim achareihem. Okay? And so he gives all the examples. Okay? And also, any word that starts with an aleph, and it's entirely possible that you're not going to pronounce it thoroughly, you should slow down and split it up. Asher anochi, mitar artsechem, va'atzar es, okay? Asher Hashem, okay? Devarai Ela. All these are examples. So you can see it going slow, and you'll see these little breaks in between these words in the Siddur itself when you look at it. Okay, so that's what a person should look for. Okay, and the Shulchan Aruch also adds here that in Psukei de Zimra and in Tefillah all the time, and so too the Ramah says someone who reads the Torah and the VM, all these things always should be super careful about this. Okay, but the reason why all these rules were taught by Shema, the Mishna says, because this is something that everyone should be that everyone's doing. So, so that's why it was done that way. Okay, so that's what they say. The interesting statement over here. And so the Kaf HaChaim actually brings a ton of examples of this. Okay, so he quotes about the Ramah saying that even by reading Torah, you have to be careful like this. So the reason why we're more strict about the Shmas, like the Mishna says, because we're accepting the yoke of heaven upon ourselves, the kingdom of heaven, and to say that Hashem is one and unique. And that's why everyone's being told about this in these cases. However, this is because not everybody is so used to reading it correctly. Therefore, we were being stringent and focusing on people to read these things correctly. So when people don't read stuff correctly in the Torah, you could actually tell them to go back and correct it. Halacha 23, we're almost done with the chapter. Okay, we're going to finish it. A person should be careful to not soften the strong letters. Okay, there's a little dot in them. It's called a dagesh. And a person should not strengthen the soft letters. You should not be madgish harafuyot. Okay, do not strengthen those. And then he also says, don't rest the mover and don't move the rester. Okay, by the shva. Some shvas are blending the consonants one to the next, and some shvas separate the consonants. Okay, so these are important things. Okay, so there's a little bit about this. The Mishna explains the shva are these two dots underneath. One is called shva na, which means the consonant blends to the next consonant, and some are called shva nach, where one has to swallow. Okay, so usually like at the end of the word. Okay, so such as a good example of something that is swallowed end of the word. Aleph and hays and those type of things are often swallowed end of the word at the end of the word. The word reyach, right, with the chet at the end it's not a blend. It's not reicha. It's reyach, right? But that's when it's swallowed. But it's a shva. So a shva means that it doesn't make a movement to the next letter. Okay. And this only will happen whenever it's also a small vowel movement as well. However, the shva na, the moving shva, where the blend moves to the next consonant, can only come when you have at the beginning of a word, or if it's preceded by a large vowel movement. Okay, and the thing is that this is pretty involved and pretty complex stuff. So it's a big deal. Okay. So he gives a little reminder of how to remember what are considered the large movements. He says it's called pituche chotam, okay, which is to basically say that the large movements are always going to be moving like that, except for the E sound called the chirik. When there's a yud next to it, that is also considered a large movement. When there's no yud, it's considered a small movement. Okay. Okay, so that's basically how it works. So pituche chotam. That's how you know you have to get it, because the letters hey yud, taf vav, ches yud, ches vav, taf mem. That's when the large movements come. Okay, so at the beginning, and at the end, and next to letters that have the cholam or the malefum. So anyway, that's a little bit of that's like 30 seconds of Hebrew pronunciation, but I could dedicate a whole class on how to read these things. But let's move along over here. Okay, Kriya Shema should be read with the Torah trup. However, the Ramah says that we don't do that, but some people are strict about it. So the Berurah says that at the very least you should recite the very first one with the trup, with the Torah trup. Okay, and that way it's better understood. Okay, but it's more important to recite it slowly. Okay, and that's the main thing. And some people who are strict about it. So he says if a person is kind of only focusing on the tune and not listening to the words, that is missing the point. Okay, another important halacha over here is, and this is 25, is when you say upchartem laos al yadecha, we're talking about tying tefillin on your arm. You should wiggle the tefillin on your arm a little bit, and when you say v'hayul to the fos beinenecha, then when you say about the ones on the head, you should shake it a little bit. So shake the arm a little bit, shake the head a little bit. You should move it around. Okay, and when you say or isem oso by tzitzis, you should take the two tzitzis in front of you and kind of look at them. We talked about this earlier, about whether you use only the first two in front of you or the back ones. And if you look back in chapter 24, I don't remember if I ever had that on my YouTube channel. Anyway, in chapter 24, if it's not there, I have to add tzitzis back to the channel. So I have to check and make sure that those little tzitzis are on there. I think they are. It's 24:5 where we talk about doing that as well. Okay, last halacha for our chapter today before we finish, and we give ourselves a pat on the back. There are those who recite the Shema out loud, and some recite the Shema quietly. Okay, so however you recite it, the Ramah adds, everyone recites it out loud. Okay, recite the first one out loud. And so you recite that out loud, and the Berurah goes silently. So when we say this, it's not just like some do this, some do that. The Mishna explains it's talking about whether you're going to fulfill your own personal mitzvah of Kriyat Shema if someone else is reciting it loudly. Okay, and most of the people assume that if someone's reciting it out loud and you sit there quietly and listen to it, they have in mind to fulfill the obligation. You could do that, and this is better than not reciting it and just thinking about it in your head. So, because thinking about it in your head is not the same as saying it. So, if you're not good at saying it, listen to somebody who is saying it and fulfill your obligation with them, specifically the person leading the congregation. Okay, because there's a general rule of when you listen to something, someone else doing it, and they have the intention to fulfill the mitzvah, you fulfill the mitzvah. We talked about this numerous times. Okay? So, that's assuming that you understand what the Hebrew all means. Okay? And that's one example that you need to understand it. However, some people disagree and say no, that's when one person's doing it for one person. However, if it's the shliach tzibur, if it's the person leading the congregation, then even if you don't understand Hebrew, you will fulfill your obligation. And that's generally how we paskin. Okay, so next time we'll learn about one who is not careful in the recitation of the Shema and one who doesn't make it audible to their ears. We will pick up with that next time. As for now, everyone have a wonderful day and enjoy the weather.